Okay, today we're going to talk about my favorite topic and yours, the pen tool. And starting out in Illustrator, although as you'll come to see, the pen tool is really a key digital tool that you'll find across all manner of visual graphics programs. So it's in Photoshop, Illustrator, Final Cut, Flash, if you still use Flash, and many others besides. So what the pen tool is for is creating vector graphics. And these are graphics that are not dependent on resolution. Instead, we're going to make shapes and arcs that come from mathematical formula, and the benefit is that they can be scaled infinitely up and down without any loss in quality. So they're not restricted by resolution until the moment of output. So I've already opened Adobe Illustrator, this little fellow here, and for this first demo I'll just go to File and New, hit OK. I'm not going to worry about any of the settings because we're just going to make some very simple graphics to start things up. If you take a look on the left-hand side in the toolbar, you'll see that there's an icon for a sort of old-timey nib pen, and if I hover it also tells me the hotkey, which in this case is P for pen. If I hold down my mouse, I'll get what's known as a tearaway menu, and if I come over here to the right side and let go, now I can reposition this menu so I have easy access. And you'll see there's 4 tools here. Really, the first 3, all of these options can be reached from the pen itself, but this convert point tool is something important we'll come back to later. The other tools that we're interested in are A for the white arrow, and then up here V for the black arrow. Alright, so back to the pen. If I come out here onto the working area and I make single clicks, I'll be letting down what are known as anchor points. So these anchor points really just have one piece of information, which is location. Every time I lay down a new one, it'll make a straight line from the last one, and then as I come back up here to my initial anchor point, I'll get that little circle which tells me that I'm going to go ahead and close it. Okay, so that's simple enough. Now as I hover near these lines, you'll see that as long as my path is active, I can show you what an inactive path looks like by taking the white arrow and clicking out here in neutral territory. So I'll click on the path to highlight it, back to my pen tool. Anytime I get near an edge that does not currently have an anchor point, I'll get an opportunity to make a click and to add a new one. There it is. And then if I get near an anchor that does exist, such as this one, I'll have an opportunity to delete it. You'll see the interesting thing about deleting an anchor is that it just takes away that portion of the graphic. It doesn't really pop a hole in a closed graphic. And so the computer is smart enough to go ahead and make a bridge between the 2 anchors that now make up the endpoint once you've deleted the other one. Okay, so we've got adding and subtracting points on an existing path. Once a path is closed, you can go ahead and start a new one and close it off like that, and so forth. So not that big a deal, but when this becomes interesting is when you start to make curves, because this is something that's hard to do by hand with the mouse, and something that the pen makes really easy. So let's say we want to make a circle, and I'll show you 2 approaches. One is to start from the pen and to just make a diamond initially. So what I'm doing is setting up my anchor point locations, but then I'm going to come back and refine these anchor points with the convert point tool. So to remember why it's called the convert point tool, you have to know that there are actually 2 kinds of anchors. The first type is a corner, right? That only contains one piece of information, which is location. But now as I approach this anchor and I hold down the mouse button and pull that to the right, I'm actually adding 2 more pieces of information. So the first one is the same, which is the location of that anchor point. As I add this element, this is known as a tangency handle. Okay, so the length of the tangency handle you can think about as sort of the magnitude or the force with which we create a curve. And then you've also got the angle of that handle relative to the center location of the anchor. And this allows me to create nice, smooth, curved lines. So I can come back here and just refine each of those anchors. You'll find when you start doing this, sometimes it'll complain if you try to click on an anchor and you don't quite hit it. You got to really just grab them exactly where they live. So as I'm refining this circle, it certainly looks curvy, but nothing like a true circle yet. I may need to come back in here with the white arrow and click until I can just isolate one of those anchor points, and then I can just change its location. Right? So maybe this gets a little fatter over here, and so forth. looking a little more circular, maybe a little too bulbous on this side. In addition to moving the location of an anchor with the white arrow, I can also change that magnitude. See how I can shorten one of those arms to change the nature of the curve? In addition to shortening an arm, I can also rotate it relative to the anchor so that it changes an angle. So again, the curve point has location, magnitude or length, and angle. You'll notice how they all alter a little bit differently. So white arrow moves the anchor like so. It also changes the angle, but you see how I have an equal and opposite effect on the other side of that tangency handle, whereas changes in magnitude are only limited to that single half of the tangency handle. Okay, so with these tools in mind, go ahead and give this a shot. Start with that diamond that starts out as anchor points. Use the Convert Point tool to make it curvy, and then come back in there with the white arrow in order to finish things off.